Hey, what's up? Turn on the sound. Can you hear me? I always think about that because all these videos go live and then it's like we're scrolling and scrolling. We're just watching someone and it's like, are they doing something interesting? Should I listen to this person? I'm learning that getting the sound on is the key to video. Hi, Liz Rickman. How are you doing? So I was thinking a lot of things. I'm just going to do a little life stream with an F, as in my life, because I just had some ideas today. Hi, Brenda. Welcome to the crew here on the live stream. If you're watching this later, you're probably not Brenda or Liz, but I do know a couple of Brenda and Liz's, so it's quite possible that you could be Brenda or Liz. I definitely know that you won't be Perlita because I don't know a lot of Perlitas. I also don't know a lot of Allie, so the chance that someone later is going to be Perlita or Allie is rare. But if you are Perlita or Allie and you're watching this later, hi, Perlita and Allie. And how fun would it be to know, too? Although, you're the originals. So that's not what this video is about. I was thinking today about, I think every day about improvisation and applied improvisation, how it applies to business and work and life and all those things. And when I teach improvisation to people who are using it, I teach kind of 4 rules. And today I wanted to talk about the third one because I was thinking about it a lot and using it quite a bit today. So the first 2 rules are agree and contribute, which is basically where yes and comes from. Agree, say yes, contribute, say and, build on that thing. The third rule when I teach improvisation is to be obvious. And then the 4th rule, I'll just tell you so you're not wondering, what was the 4th rule? The 4th rule is about using everything. So today I want to talk about the 3rd one, though, because it's been on my mind because I've been talking with a lot of people lately. So the 3rd rule, be obvious, is in improv. If we're creating like a theatrical improv scene, we're on stage and we're making something out of nothing. And so we are, a troupe of actors on a stage, and we get a suggestion, and then we have to create without rules. That's essentially what improvisational theater is. So the be obvious part for me is about being really, really clear. Thanks for sharing the love, Carrie. That's nice of you. And hi, Jennifer, if you're watching later. Anyone who Carrie loves, I love. So the 3rd rule of be obvious is so that if I'm in a scene with you as an actor, you're understanding what I'm doing, that I'm not like doing a weird face where it's like, is he mad? Is he happy? I want to communicate to you what I'm trying to do in the scene. I want to communicate to you that I'm a doctor. So I'm going to say something like, nurse, bring me my stethoscope. Oh, cool, you're a doctor. I get it. I've made it very obvious. Now, in some scenes, we go like pretty dramatic. We'll be like, hey, mom, it's your son. And it's like, oh, I get who we are. But for the most part, we can be really obvious through our actions, through our facial expressions, and through the tone of voice, the use of status, high and low. A high status person is a king. A low status person might be a pauper in a very traditional sense there. But there could be a low status king as well. It's basically saying, here's where I carry myself. And so I want to be clear in that if I'm doing a scene with someone. Hi, Chris. Hi, Carmine. Hi, Sue Sandler. Hi, Shannon Wysong. If I'm doing a scene with someone, I want to be really clear. I want to be very obvious about what I'm doing. I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a theatrical singer. I'm a diabetic. I want it to be clear so that we could create a scene that makes sense. Now, I'm thinking about all of the other places that applies. Someone was talking to me today about me and what I've done and how I've become the brand that I've done. Was it the hair? Was it the orange and purple and green branding on my website? What was the magic trick? It was none of those things. And all of those things, I guess. When I think about personal branding, I think we've gone a long way away from the late 90s, early 2000 idea of like, you need a logo and you need a specific way that you're thought of all the time because of the outward fake packaging. I think what personal branding comes from today is about being clear with your intentions. And what I mean about being clear or being obvious, if we're thinking of the improv sense of the use of it, is that it's about really being thoughtful about what you're communicating. What are the times when you're not aware of what you're communicating? If you're a salesperson, like my friend Josh Smith, who's here or was here, then what are you saying? What is the message, that the words you choose, the whole package, what you bring to the table, how you respond to questions, how closely you listen, how much eye contact you make? What is that communicating about you? And is that consistent? What I find often is that when people have a personal brand that's in jeopardy or that isn't consistent with how they see themselves, the issue is usually communication. The perceptions that other people have of you become your reputation. I'm going to say that again because when I first kind of started thinking about that, it made so much sense to me. So I'm going to say it one more time. The perceptions that other people have with you with repetition become your reputation. So for example, if I believe that Sue is super generous and kind because I've seen her do nice things for people, then that's what I think of her. Now, it may just have been that I was around her the 2 times in her life where she did something nice and she's not that way. But in my perception of her once and twice or 3 times, she was kind and did nice things. So the reputation from the repetition is what I believe about her because that's what she communicated. What I find often, so she was obvious about that in those 3 settings or whatever the case might be. What I find when people come to me for advice on building a personal brand and saying that they think I've done a good job of building one around positivity, around radical culture, around really getting people connected, and of course having big hair, people come and ask me for advice on that. And what I say is you need to find out what you're communicating, and then if it's not what you want to communicate, then you've got to change that consistently with repetition, because perception with repetition becomes reputation. Whew, that's a big thought. And so the whole idea of that third improvisational rule that I teach, be obvious, is about you want to make sure that if you want to be known as someone who is thoughtful and caring, that you are obvious about that. And not that you walk around and say, hey, I'm Mike Anino. I'm very thoughtful and caring. Did you know? But you want to make sure that what's communicated in meetings, in sales meetings, in group meetings, in one-on-one sessions, on the way you communicate on social media or on LinkedIn, that is what that feels like. That your messaging, your greetings, your outros, that it feels like someone who's thoughtful and caring. You need to be obvious about the fact that that's part of who you are. Because again, most of our issues with each other come from us not being obvious about our intentions and not being able to communicate them in a way that's clear to everybody. Is that making sense? Are you liking this? Is this helpful? If you love it, I'd love for you to share this because I think, hey, more people thinking like an improviser is a good thing. And I'd love to hear what you have to say also. Like, chime in. What's happening for you? Where are you seeing that? So I posted 3 things that it helps with. One is that being obvious helps with personal branding. Again, if you're obvious and it's clear, like you're the person I go to for this. You're super savvy, helpful realtor. You're super savvy, helpful nurse. You're friendly, kind, and positive, manager. So being obvious helps with your personal brand because you do it. A couple ways that you should be thinking about your personal brand in being obvious are, especially if you're a job seeker, is making sure that your digital brand matches the brand you want. And that is not about communicating, having a different kind of photo or being phony. It's about figuring out what you are. What is the communication and message? Because you don't want to trick somebody either. You don't want someone to think, ooh, I got somebody who's very polished and wears a suit, and then you show up and you got the Hawaiian shirt on, because now I've got this cognitive issue of who are you? Can you be trusted? And again, remember, perception repeated creates reputation. So you want to make sure, personal brand-wise, that what you're going to deliver matches, because then you create a strong, congruent message. My friend Tamsin Webster talks about the red thread when she talks about communication. And this is really similar to that idea of being really clear that there is something consistent about who you are, so people start to understand what they can rely on and what they can trust. Does that make sense? I hope that's making sense. It makes sense in my head, right? It's kind of fun. This is what we do on live streams. So that's number 1. Thanks, Brenda, for sharing it. If you think this is helpful and useful, I'd love for you to share it. Hi, Rachel. So personal brand is the one thing that being obvious, which is the third step of improvisation, and we're applying it to life here, we're applying it to business, we're applying it to getting jobs. So being obvious will help with your personal brand. People will understand what they're getting. That perception will be repeated. That builds reputation. That builds personal brand. I talked about being obvious helping with communication. So often what happens, and there's like some famous quote, I don't know who said it, but there's a famous quote that says something along the lines of, the biggest issue with communication is the perception or the idea that it's happened. And I think that's pretty true. Great stuff. Brenda likes it. It's making sense. So the main issue with communication is that somebody thinks it happened. A lot of times I'll be asked for advice on training. And what I always say is that we often assume we've trained somebody because we told them. There's a really famous book written about training design that's called Telling Ain't Training. And I think that's so true. Telling ain't training. The same way that talking is not communicating. The words that you say are not necessarily the message that's getting across. So when we think about being obvious, helping with the second promise on there about communication, that's where it's coming from. Are you being really clear? Are you being really intentional? What I find often is that I'll talk to managers who are getting ready to go into an interview or getting ready to do a performance review. Let's take that one. And they haven't really thought about, in that performance conversation, what is the goal? What is a win in that conversation? What do they want the other person to walk away understanding? Do you want them to understand that you're there for them and that you're supportive, and that at the same time you want to hold them accountable so they can do great work? Is that what you want them to understand? So how does that change? If you were to stop before you go into a performance conversation and you were to think for a minute, what is it that I want this person to really understand? What's the story? When they go home tonight, what's the story they're going to tell somebody? Are they going to say, you know what, I had a really great chat with my manager today. We outlined some ways, some things I can work on. I'm super excited to see what we could do. And I feel like Brenda really had my back and she's on my side and she's here to help me get an A, not just to grade my paper. Another management thing I like to talk about. Is that the story they're telling? Are they going home and saying, no, my boss just kind of like ragged on me today, yelled at me, and, isn't really there, doesn't really care, and doesn't understand what's going on? Because they're going to tell a story. So have you taken a minute before you go into the conversation to be thoughtful about what story you want them to tell? And this isn't about manipulating them. This isn't about like fake performance or anything. This is about being really intentional with what you do mean to say, what you do mean to communicate. It's about being obvious in your message to the other person. I'm married and we've been together for 12 years, and it shows up even there around communication. Our ability to be really clear with what we mean, intentional or obvious with what we're saying, is sometimes challenged in no bigger way than in a marriage or with a child, I imagine. I don't have one. My dog children don't talk back. So actually, that's kind of an interesting thing that just occurred to me. With the dogs, I have to be pretty obvious if I want them to perform and do something. I've got to be clear about what's happening. That's interesting. That just occurred to me. I'll add that to my notes for this chapter. So being obvious helps with communication as well, because you take a minute to get clear about what you do mean and what you do hope to say. And so that's the second one. And now I can't remember the third one. This is the challenge. I was just doing a live stream. I just wanted to come chat with you, just talk about some things. And now I can't remember. I said that being obvious would help you with, my God, I'm a horrible Facebook Live host. Oh my goodness. So I said it would help you with your personal branding. I gave you some ideas of how it could do that. I talked about how it can help with your communication. And my laptop is too far away for me to log into Facebook and see what the third thing I said. If you're still watching and you could see what the third thing I said being obvious would help with, can you be obvious and help me out right now? This is a calamity, you guys. This is what improvisation is about. It's a jumping without a net. Okay, so the other thing that I think someone will look it up for me here who's watching, maybe Brenda's looking it up and she's going to see, what is the third thing that Mike said? Communication. Oh my God, Chris, I love you too. I couldn't even remember the 2 now. Oh my gosh, 37, y'all. It's getting tough. I got a Diva Ring light on right here, so it's making me look a little like more glowy. And I've got this cool map behind me that makes me feel like I'm like a CNN reporter, like reporting in from the scene somewhere. Really, I'm just in my kitchen with the Diva Ring light shining in my face. Relationships, bingo. Thank you, Brenda, for looking that up. So the first one that I said that being obvious would help with, which is my third step of improvisation. Being obvious will help you with personal branding, and I gave you a bunch of ideas there. Being really clear about what you want people to know. Perception, repeated, creates reputation. So are you being clear so that people can get that perception of you, build a reputation? That is how you build a personal brand. That is how you become known for something. And I would challenge you that no matter what you're doing, you have a personal brand. People are going to come to you and be like, oh, Brenda's the one you go to for this. So be thoughtful about that. The second one was in our communications with each other. So written communications, digital communications, in-person communications. We've got to be really thoughtful and clear about what we want to communicate. We got to be obvious, because what I find, thank you, Shannon and Brenda, they're helping me out, relationship building. What I have found is that the more that we often misinterpret each other. Ooh, I saw a little thumb. It was my first thumb, I think. Thank you for the little happy thumb. I like you too. That was nice. So the art of communicating is about being clear and making sure that the message hit. There we go, branded communication, relationship building. We got the trifecta up in here tonight, y'all. We got lots of people helping out. Thanks, Allie. So personal branding, communication, and the third one, relationship building. So how does that make sense? Oh my God, so many hearts. Oh, I love you too. Thank you. So the relationship building, right? Is that really just a factor of communication? Oh my God, we got hearts, we got thumbs, we got everything. I'm getting so distracted, you guys. This is what relationship building is about. People then give you hearts and love, and it warms you digitally. I'm getting digital warmth here. So it helps with relationship building being obvious, because people start to understand, one, what you're about, what they could rely on you for. And it also helps them understand your intentions. It helps to build trust, because if you're obvious and I know what to expect from you, perception, reputation, and I'm constantly getting that, oh my God, I love all your hearts, Annette, and I'm constantly getting clarity about who you are and what I can rely on you for, that builds our relationship. One time in my early 20s, when I first became a corporate trainer in a restaurant group, hi, Dr. Baker. I remember I was really distraught because I had this relationship with like a very important like regional director, and we'd had this yucky interaction, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the end of my life. What do? I don't know what to do. And I just went to her and I was like, hey, I think this was really yucky. And, and what she said to me was basically like, hey, we'll get over it. We'll build from here. And she gave me this idea, and I actually shared this today with somebody, that our relationships with other people are like bank accounts. And we make deposits and we make withdrawals. And so deposits are obviously building up our emotional bank account. So Allie, who's in the group, is somebody that I work with a lot. And so we have a big, big bank account. We've got a lot of positive interactions. We've supported each other. We've trusted each other. So our bank account's really big. So when one of us screws up, the withdrawal is like, oh, no, it's okay. It's good. We got enough in there that I know that I can generally rely on you to take care of me, or whatever the case is. So when I do something crappy and I need to beg for an apology from someone like Allie, it's going to be okay, because we have enough positive things, enough clear, obvious communications that when something bad happens, it's a small little ding in our bank account, but we got a big juicy bank account between us, an emotional bank account, relationship bank account, that when something bad happens, it's like, oh, we took some money out today, but it's okay. We got enough in there. We're still good and happy. And so being obvious, being really intentional about who you are with other people, having a clear personal brand that people can understand, because it's built on perception, repetition of the perception built reputation. That's what personal brand is. And it's coming with clear communication about your intentions, what you mean, what you don't mean, what's included, what's not included. Then it helps you build this great relationship where you're putting positive deposits into this bank account of the relationship so that when something happens, they know who you are. You've been so obvious about what matters to you and where you stand with them and where they stand with you that when you screw up, they've got your back and the relationship is better. And that all comes from being really obvious, which again is the third step of the way I teach improvisation to people at work. It's about being obvious, being intentional and being clear and saying this is who I am and this is what matters and this is what you can expect from me, and then backing that up every single time that they interact with you. I often coach people on issues they're having between each other at work, or an issue they're having with a client or something like that. Every single time, I get so nervous saying every single time because someone's going to be like, not this one time. This one time it was something else, so you must be lying. Many, many times. My wise friend Michael Port taught me not to ever say always. So I'm going to say many, 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 most of the times when I'm helping someone deal with a communication issue, it is because they haven't been obvious. What person A meant to say, what person A, B understood are different because they haven't been clear enough. We think that because we say something, other people get it the same way we do. But we know that's not true. We can watch an interaction and we have very different takes on it. The fact that there are so many different songs in a Spotify list that people like or don't like, movies we can watch, books we can read, says that we may not be into the same thing, which means we probably don't understand it the same. The only way around that, the only way to work better together is by being more obvious. We've got to be clear on what we mean. We got to be clear on what we don't mean. Even if you have to say those words. Here's what I am saying. Here's what I'm not saying. What I'm saying is this is really important and I trust you and I want to make sure we get it right. What I'm not saying is that I'm worried about our ability to get it done or I want to micromanage the process. Just those little words help clarify your intention and leaves less room for someone to walk away and say, oh my God, like Mike's really micromanaging this. You call it out specifically. If there's something you're worried about, call it out ahead of time and say, hey, I just want to, before we get started, this is the thing on my mind that I'm thinking about. My intentions here are that you and I could come up with some great solution together. By the way, the first two rules, agree and contribute, help a lot with that. The fourth rule of my improv teaching, use everything, helps with that. The third rule, be obvious, gets you to the game. By going into the meeting and saying, here's what I know, here's what I hope, here's what I don't hope, here's what I mean, this is what I don't mean. It helps a lot. It helps people understand where you're coming from. And if you respond that way consistently, if you communicate that way consistently, and you're obvious in your communications with people, you're going to build great relationships. So those are the 4 simple rules. I only covered the third one today, but I gave you a little snippet of the others. I hope you loved the video. If you loved it, if you're watching still, I'd love you to share it. I think it's helpful stuff for people. And even if that one line that I just said at the end, I think that's really useful. That one's helped me out of a lot of situations, especially ones where I know going in that it's like, this conversation is going to be tough. Say that. Say at the top, hey, this conversation might be tough for us. I know we've struggled to be on the same page in the past. My intention today is that you and I can work through this together and come up with something awesome. What I don't want to happen is I have no interest in like micromanaging this or owning it. I want to work with you on this. And I know we haven't been able to do that as well as we both would like in the past. So I hope we can. I actually said that recently to somebody and I think it changes the relationship. So be obvious about your intentions. Chris is saying, reminds me of something Rocky teaches. Oh, Rocky, check for understanding. Have the other person repeat it back, what they heard from you. And he's a psychologist, right? That's his actual training. Rocky was Chris and I went to diabetic camp together. I think you're relatively open. I hope I didn't just out you as a diabetic, Chris. We went to diabetic camp together for many, many years. And then we worked at diabetic camp together as counselors. And I was never a lifeguard, but I don't know, maybe she was. I don't know. Arts and crafts people. We did all kinds of jobs at camp. And Rocky was the person who ran the camp and runs the camp and is just a great guy and really helped everybody work better together. So I love that idea. Check for understanding. Have the other person repeat back what they heard from you. Yeah, it's about being obvious, being clear. So I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, you liked it, Share it out. If you got questions, if you're watching it later and you want to keep talking, if you got something specific you're working on, share it in here. I'll do another video. We'll chat more about it. Thanks for hanging out with me. I would like to be obvious right now and say that I really love that you paid attention to me. I know you have a lot of choices when it comes to tuning into videos on Facebook and things to watch and people to talk about. So I hope this little moment of positivity from me is helpful in your day. And I really value the fact that you took some time to watch it. So thanks for giving me your attention. Now go out there, be awesome, be obvious, and I will talk to you later.